This is Jocko Podcast number 20 with Echo Charles and me, Jocko Willink. Around 8 p.m. on September 21st, 2007, the authorities notified me that I should go for a mind re-education talk. I found there were some unusual things happening at this time. The secret police, who used to follow me very closely, kept a further distance. I was walking down the street one day, and then, when I turned a corner, about 6 or 7 strangers started walking towards me. I suddenly felt a strong blow to the back of my neck and fell face down on the ground. Someone yanked my hair, and a black hood was pulled over my head immediately. I was brought to a vehicle and was put in it. I couldn't see, but it seemed that I had 2 benches with a space in the middle. I was put in the space in the middle of the floor. My right cheek was on the ground. All of a sudden, a boot was put on my face, holding me down. Many hands started searching all over me. My belt was pulled off and used to tie my hands behind my back. At least 4 people put their feet on me, holding me down. About 40 minutes later, I was dragged out of the car. My pants were falling down around my knees, and I was dragged into a room. No one said anything at all to me until that time. The hood was pulled off my head at this time. Immediately, men began cursing and hitting me. One of the men said, "Your date of death has come today. Brothers, let's give him a brutal lesson today. Beat him to death." Then 4 men with electric shock prods began beating my head and all over my body. Nothing but noise and the beating of my anxious breathing could be heard. I was beaten so severely that my whole body began uncontrollably shaking. "Don't pretend to do that," I was shouted out by a guy whom I later learned was named Wang. Then a very strong and tall man grabbed my hair and pulled me up off the ground. Then Wang began beating me on the face terribly. "You are not worthy to wear clothes. Pull off all of his clothes." All of my clothes were pulled off, and I was totally naked. Wang yelled again, and someone kicked me in the back of my legs, and I collapsed to the floor. The big guy continued to pull my hair and forced me to lift my head to see Wang. At this time, I could see that there were 5 people in the room. 4 of the men were holding electric prods, and 1 was holding my belt. "You listen, gal. Today your uncles want nothing but to make your life worse than death." While Wang was saying this, the electric shock prods were put on my face and upper body, shocking me. Wang then said, "Come on, guys, deliver the second course." Then the electric shock baton was put all over me, and my full body, my heart, lungs, and muscles began jumping under my skin uncontrollably. I was writhing around on the ground in pain, trying to crawl away. Wang then shocked me in my genitals. My begging them to stop only returned laughing and more unbelievable torture. Wang then used the electric shock baton 3 more times on my genitals while shouting loudly. After a few hours of this, I had no energy to even beg, let alone try to escape. But my mind was still clear. It seems that the torturers themselves were also tired. Before the dawn came, 3 of them left the room. "We will come back later to give him the next course," Wang said. I asked, "How can you face the beating of Chinese and use mafia tactics on Chinese taxpayers?" "You are an object to be beaten. You know that in your heart better than most. Taxpayers count for nothing in China. Don't talk about this term, taxpayers." While he was saying this, someone else also entered the room. I recognized the voice to be Wang's. "Don't talk to him with your mouth. Give him the real thing. Your uncles have prepared 12 courses. We only finished 3 last night. Your chief uncle doesn't like to talk, and so following you will see that you will have to eat your own shit and drink your own piss. Don't you talk about torture by the Communist Party yet, because we will give you a comprehensive lesson now. I am not afraid of you if you continue to write. We can torture you to death without your body being found. In the following hours of torture, I passed out several times because of lack of water and food and heavy sweating. I was lying down on the cold floor, naked. I felt several times someone come and open my eyes and shine a flashlight into them to see if I was still alive. When I would come to, I smelled the strong odor of stinky urine. My face, nose, and hair were filled with the smell. Obviously, but I don't know when, someone urinated on my face and head. This torture continued until around noon of the third day. I don't know where I got the strength to endure, but somehow I struggled to get away from their grasp and began to beat my head on the table. I was shouting the names of my 2 children and trying to kill myself. But my attempt did not succeed. I thank Almighty God for this. It was Him who rescued me. I truly felt God drag me back from that state and give me my life. My eyes were full of bleeding through, though because of my head banging. I fell on the ground. Immediately, 3 people sat on my body. One was on my face. They were laughing. They said I used my death to try and scare them. They said they have just seen this too many times. They then continued the torture again until that night. I could not see anything with my eyes anymore. Every day while I was being held, the experience of eating was unusual. Whenever I was at the point of starving, they would bring up mantle, which was steamed bread, and offer it to me. If I would sing one of the 3 famous Revolutionary Communist Party songs, I could have some bread. My deepest desire was that I wanted to live until that was no longer possible. My death would be torturous for my wife and children, but at the same time, I didn't want to dirty my soul. But in that environment, human dignity has no strength. If you don't sing these songs, you will continue to be starved, and they will continue to torture you. So I sang. When they used the same tactic, though, pressuring me to write articles attacking Falun Gong, I didn't do it. But I compromised by writing my statement saying that the government didn't kidnap me and torture me, and that they treated me and my family well. I did sign that document. During these more than 50 days, more horrible evils were committed than I told here. Those evils were not even worthy of any historical records by any human governments. But those records will further enable us to see clearly that how much further the leaders of CCP are willing to go in its evil crime against humanity in order to protect its illegal monopoly power. Those evils are so dirty and disgusting that I don't want to mention it at this time, and perhaps will never mention it in the future. Every time when I was tortured, I was always repeatedly threatened that if I spelled out later what had happened to me, I would be tortured again. But this time I was told, this time it will happen in front of your wife and children. The tall, strong man that pulled my hair repeated this over and over during the 7 days I was tortured. Your death is sure if you share this with the outside world. This was repeated many times. These brutal, violent acts are not right. Those that did it themselves knew this clearly in their hearts. So that's a note from a guy named Gao Zicheng, who is a Christian lawyer in China that defended Christians and became an enemy of the Chinese Communist state. And again, this is 2007 that this occurred. And the reason I started off with that tonight is because we're going to delve into some material that comes from Mao Zedong, who is, one of the most famous and powerful and communist leaders ever.